Kia ora everyone, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Laura McGoldrick and I'm very thrilled to have with me here today Ross Taylor, former Blackcap, now retired, and he has just released his new book, Black and White, an autobiography all about his life. And I tell you what, Ross, you have lived quite a life in your short amount of years, and what a career it's been. Does it feel real now that the book's come out that you've retired?
I suppose we started writing it in October, so I sort of knew what I was doing. I was going to retire at the end of the summer. I probably did hold on a little bit of hope, maybe for 5 or 10% that I might carry on to the 2023 World Cup. But no, I think I knew my time was up, and it was nice to, I guess, get into it. And it's been a long and eventful career, I suppose, and something that I'm proud of. And I'm, after spending a few months to write this, it was, hopefully people, enjoy the read and enjoy it as much as I've done in doing it, I guess.
You have had a hell of a career, both on the field and off it. But I want to know, was there one particular point that made you go, look, that's enough? Had this been building for a while that your time was coming to an end?
Yeah, I think, I write in the book about the contract list. I think I was given contracts number, I didn't get a 2020 ranking. I got a ranking of number 6 in ODI cricket, and I was number 3 in the world. I think the writing was on the wall there. So from then on, it was just trying to work out when my best exit strategy was to still try and fulfill my goals and what I wanted to achieve, but knowing that my time in the team was coming to an end. So it was an interesting time. The contracts just came out just before the World Cup final. So, there's a lot of things going through my mind at the time. And I guess, looking back on it, hitting the winning runs, dealing with the pressures, and I guess like any sportsman has to deal with, knowing you're coming to an end, probably made that World Cup win extra special.
Would you say hitting those winning runs was the best moment of your career, or is there something else that sticks out?
No, I think that it would definitely have to be up there. I guess after what happened in 2019 to come and, I never thought I'd play in another World Cup final. So to be there, to be the inaugural winners of the Test Championship, it was something I'll never forget. There was team wins and individual milestones that would have come close, but to win a World Cup, something that I've always wanted to do as a young kid, watching the '92 World Cup, and it was nice to get across the line and carry the mace around the country as well.
But you haven't always been a part of a Blackcap side that's won games of cricket and won, World Cups or even got to finals. You've been through a really interesting period of time, as with New Zealand cricket. One of the big chapters I know a lot of people have been waiting for was your opportunity to tell your side of the story about what happened around the captaincy. Rereading it, and I imagine there's a lot of drafts and talking about it with the author Paul Thomas. Was that scary? Was it sad? I mean, you didn't talk a lot about it at the time. A lot of people did the talking around you. Does that make you feel nervous or relieved? How are you feeling about it?
There's probably a few things. It was definitely a tough time in my career. But I sat down with the publishers in 2013 to talk about it with them, to get it off my chest. It was quite therapeutic at the time, I think. I've worked with different sports psychologists, and they said, just go and tell your story, get it off your chest, because once it was happening, Gilbert and Oka said to me, Ross, this is going to be, do not forget it, because this is going to be a good book. So I probably held on to it, but it was really therapeutic for me to, back in 2013, to put it out there. We probably did 4 or 5 hours of talking. So when I actually talked with Paul, we actually didn't talk about it that much. We'd done all the talking. So, a lot of it was talking about positive things that happened in my career. But yeah, I mean, definitely a tough time, not only for myself, but for my family. So yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit nervous. But at the same time, it was nice to get my side of the story, because, there's two, I couldn't have told my story. I wouldn't have played cricket for much longer if I did. But yeah, a lot of people have had their say, and this is my turn to, I guess, have my say. But
when you look back on it, how much do you think it shaped the rest of your career? Because for us on the outside as cricket fans, you know, you see the change. It goes from, you know, you get Mike Hesson on board, and then the captaincy changed, and then you just carried on playing cricket. But I don't imagine it was as easy as that.
Yeah, it was definitely hard. But at the same time, there's only one New Zealand cricket team to play for. So you just got to effectively just suck it up and get on with it. You know, when you're dealing with people who have done things to you which you're not that happy with, and you can't really talk about it. I think that was quite hard to deal with, that going into the change room day in, day out, and see people who have, you know, done things that are a bit bit underhand, and but at the same time, the public don't know. So, you know, to go in that change room, that took a lot of inner strength and resilience. Chapter 8, forgive but don't forget, was you know, that's the way I dealt with it.
Knowing that you were going to eventually get your say, did that help?
Yeah, it definitely. I knew my day would come, so to speak, and here we are with the book. And you know, I don't want it to be. When we talked about it, we didn't want this all to be about the captaincy. There's a lot of things good that have happened, and bad in other situations in my career. And at the same time, you know, I wanted to accentuate that, but I didn't want the whole book to be, you know, a negative and a mudslinging type thing. It's tell my side of the story and move on.
What was the main points of your story that you felt were really important for you to get across around the captaincy?
How it affected me, and how it wasn't just a one event. I think it was quite often probably a year to 2 year thing that was happening behind the scenes. There was you know, obviously the team was losing, different CEOs, different boards, you know, things that when you want to be a Blackcap or a cricketer, none of these things you have to learn to deal with as you're going along. You don't, you know, you just want to play cricket and be the best player you want. All this leadership stuff, all the different personalities, the different, you know, manoeuvring from different personnel above and below you was something that's I've never had to deal with in my life. I'm sure people in different walks of life have to deal with it on a daily basis, but you want to be a cricketer first and foremost, but you definitely have to learn quickly and know who your friends are and deal with setbacks.
How would you describe Mike Hesson and Brendan McCullum around the change of captaincy and when Mike first came into his position as coach of the Blackcaps?
Yeah, I suppose, I didn't know. Obviously, I knew the relationship leading into it. I mentioned it, you know, I asked Hess about his relationship with Brendan. But yeah, I didn't know until John Buchanan got interviewed that was one of the first things he said that Hess said to John Buchanan was, you know, he wanted to change the captaincy. So it wasn't a thing that happened over time. You know, obviously Hess wanted to do it straight away, but there was pushback for whatever reason. So yeah, captains and coaches have get on for different reasons, and obviously Hess and Brendan had their relationship. So we didn't have a very good captaincy relationship, but obviously the team grew under Hess and Brendan. But yeah, I'm not sure what else to say.
So for those at home who don't know who John Buchanan is, he was once the Australian cricket coach. He was very successful, but actually kind of an unpopular coach. The big names, I think, of Shane Warne didn't really like him, is the main one I can think of. And there were lots of stories around that. So he came into New Zealand in a high performance role. When did you realise you had an ally in him?
I think he was just a straight shooter. I think John Buchanan, I think he, you know, a bit like Hogan, he wouldn't sugarcoat things. He would just tell you straight up if you're doing a good job or not doing a good job. But yeah, I think it just didn't sit right with him what was happening behind the scenes in his capacity. And you know, once John Wright finished up, he told me that you know, he just couldn't stay on the role, and just to be careful, Ross. So once I'd gone, I think the writing was on the wall for John Buchanan, which, you know, John Wright, John Buchanan, some very, you know, very outstanding individuals with high integrity and honesty for for them to have been treated in the way they were was, probably disappointing to say the least.
So what was it like when you first came into the team and Hess is still the coach and now Brendan McCullum is the captain? How was that period?
I didn't know the team. They talked about reintegration. But to me, reintegration was me doing something wrong. I felt like I didn't do anything wrong. Hess wanted a new captain. Fair enough. Obviously, a few things that happened were, not great from my point of view. But I think I didn't know when I went to bat at Eden Park, my first game after the captaincy against England, it wasn't until I got home after the game that my wife said, "Oh, how'd you deal with the standing ovation that the crowd gave me?" And I was like, I didn't even know. My head was down. I batted. I think I dropped a couple of sodas. Got 10 runs with about 12 balls, so not my finest hour.
Good T20 innings.
But I think it was funny how different things happen, because I got, obviously the public were on my side, but then a shift happened. I wasn't allowed to do any media even when I did well. So there's a lot of things that happened that you might have not seen from the outside, but from the inside, that made my job a lot harder once I got into the team. And as I said, there's only one New Zealand cricket to play for. You just got to suck it up and get on with it. I don't know what other job you would be able to get away with that, but seems like professional sport is something that, as I said, you get away with things that you probably wouldn't get away with in normal employment law in this day and age.
Was that something that was said to you, look, Ross, it's not the right time for you to go up in the media? Were they worried about what you were going to say? What do you think it was that made that sort of thing happen?
I think probably a little bit of both, I think. Yeah. I'm not sure. I think I got Player of the Year that year. We didn't have an awards. Might not been a good look if I end up winning the Sir Richard Hadlee medal after the way I'd been treated and things like that. At the time, there wasn't an awards that I'd ever missed in my time in the Blackcaps, and there was definitely things that you had to deal with and just suck up that I don't think many other Blackcaps have had to deal with in the last decade or so.
So no awards the year you lost the captaincy, but you still won the award.
Yeah, so 2013. So I got awarded the 2012 one, went on stage, but they didn't show that on TV. I did an interview with Brian Waddle afterwards, and he said, "Oh, congratulations. They didn't want to give you the award." And I thought, it didn't really resonate with me at the time. So I was like, okay. And then he explained, Paul rang Brian Waddle and he said, I don't know the ins and outs because Don Neely, who has just passed away, was a convener of selectors, but there was definitely a push for Ross not to get it. Brendan got 200 and 300, so they wanted, New Zealand cricket were pushing back for Brendan to win it. Then Brian Waddle told Paul, well, I was a convener in 2018. David White rang me asking who was the Player of the Year, and Brian Waddle said to David White, well, Ross Taylor's our Sir Richard Hadlee medalist. David White said, oh, I don't think so. Brian Waddle went back to the panel of Ian Smith, Brian Waddle, Don Neely, and they were unanimous. Well, no, we're going to stick to our awards, but it's your awards, David. You can change it if you want. And they went with Trent Bolt. So I didn't know this until probably October, November. So yeah, for whatever reason, I'm not sure what David's reasons were, but they took it off me, and I guess a pattern of behaviour over a number of years. But yeah, it was, as I said, I didn't know it happened at the time, but to have, heard later on, it probably didn't sit that well with me at the time.
So do you think following 2013, when you lost the captaincy and some of the behaviours around that, did they continued sort of throughout your career, like there was some stuff that was going against you, no matter how hard you tried?
Yeah, the ball, I tell in the book, Stuart Hill was the chairman on the board at the time, and I walked past him 3 or 4 times that evening in 2013. He did not congratulate me once. So, obviously I was the problem. It doesn't take much to congratulate, someone for winning 2 Sir Richard Hadlee medals. But the way I looked at it was, obviously they said I didn't go quietly that I was a troublemaker, but he did present Brennan with a special award of 300 that night. So yeah, there was definitely a push against me for whatever reason, but I guess you just get on with it and do your job.
And you felt at times very isolated. When did you feel like the writing was on the wall for you in terms of your time as captain?
I think it was just before we went to Sri Lanka. I think there was a few leaks that were going on at the time, and what was happening in the team was coming out before it was coming out publicly. So yeah, I think when the board and Hess never came out publicly and backed me, there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes. It didn't come as a surprise that was going to happen. It just was a surprise that they came and talked to me a couple of days before that first test. But no, just shows you what you can do with a couple of hours sleep over a 2 or 3 week period. Still one of the best I've ever batted in Colombo, after Martin Crowe telling me to be there at the end of the day's play, and John Buchanan seeing me the next morning, and they knew what was happening behind the scenes, and for me to be there at the end and win the test match, I knew what was going on, and my family and friends knew what was going on, but the New Zealand public didn't know until, I guess, after we got home effectively, and then I guess an interesting couple of weeks in the lives of a few different individuals.
Who were you talking to? Who were you relying on? Was it Buchanan and Martin Crowe? Were they the biggest support for you through that? From
a batting point of view, I was talking to Hogan, Martin Crowe, but he was going through chemotherapy at the time, so I didn't want to put him to tell him. I'd never told him until probably 2 or 3 weeks after that happened, so probably a week until I got home. John Buchanan, obviously, being in his role in New Zealand cricket, he was a great ally and a great support to me during that time. But yeah, I didn't want to tell a few players. I told your husband. He was the only player that I told for a good week or so, and then obviously talking to Leanne and my wife, Gilbert and Oka, and that back home. So yeah, I had amazing support through that, and I definitely wouldn't have been able to do it without them. But yeah, it wasn't until I got home, before I got to Colombo, probably a couple of days before the second test, that I told Mum and Dad that I didn't want to go to Sri Lanka. I didn't want to go to South Africa after this. Told them what had happened, and to get their blessing not to go there was almost like a relief, because I knew how proud they were of what I achieved and being a captain. So yeah, that was probably for me the biggest relief to get their blessing, and I probably wouldn't have succeeded in that test if it was over me thinking that I had to go to South Africa after that.
But did your motivations for playing cricket for New Zealand change off the back of how you felt you were treated? Did you still want to play for New Zealand? Did that change? Did it become more about, okay, well, let's just get through this because one day I'll get to tell my side of the story? Like what was able to be your driving force to play? Because it doesn't sound like you felt like you were truly part of the team when you first came back into the fold.
Well, as I said before, I think there's only one New Zealand cricket team to play for, and when I first met Hogan, he had a lot of goals for me to set. I think I'd be a lot wealthier if I gave up then and just played 2020, but then that wasn't my motivation. Money's never been a motivation. But then that's when the goals became even more relevant. When things are going well, I think goals take care of themselves. You don't even think about them, but when things aren't going so well, they just sort of, it's a bit of a reset button and gives you a different, focus. And once I got in the team, and once Hesson and Brendan knew Ross is here for the right reasons, I was never going to undermine them or anything. As I said, that's not in my nature. But once they realised that wasn't what I was going to do, that I just went on and played cricket, and things became easier. You know, winning games of cricket, winning, losing. You know, you got a common goal. You want to win games of cricket for your country, and the team started winning. It was good to be a part of.
But was it hard to be part of at the same time? Because this is still your team for the best part that you were once captain of, maybe 6 months, a year later. And I think of 2015 and how quickly the shift from New Zealand public, once we started winning and there were games, and I don't think I've ever seen a reaction to cricket in this country like we did in 2015. As wonderful as it must have been as a New Zealand cricketer to be a part of it, was it hard for Ross Taylor?
Yeah, it was tough. Once the team started winning, and how it was handled became irrelevant, you know. And the public go along, and fair enough. But yeah, it was definitely tough.
Did that make you angry though, at any point, that people sort of had forgotten? Because, you know, I can think of times where in my life I've been hacked off and I'm still hacked off about something, but everyone just carries on about their business.
But at the same time, you know, you don't want to play the victim card the whole time. Life goes on and you move on. I think, you know, things happen a lot worse than what happened to me in other walks of life. It's just that mine was a little bit more public, I guess, and you have to get on. To say it was tough and wasn't, you know, it definitely was hard to deal with different situations, but you learnt to just keep your mouth shut and move on. That was almost the easiest way to deal with it. But at the same time, winning was what you wanted to do. Score runs, win games for your country. And that trumps everything from, you know, what's happening in the background or what's happening in life. And at the same time, you got kids as well. You got a family to take your mind off things. Had a good support network around me, family and friends, that I don't think I would have been able to deal with it as well as I did if it wasn't for them.
Can you look at it now and go, Brendan should have gone before you as captain and then you after him and then Kane?
Yeah, I think the captaincy definitely came a few years too early for me. If I'd had a couple more years to continue to grow in my batting role. But at the same time, as people at the time were like, Ross, you might not be given this opportunity to play cricket again, to captain your country again, so there is no perfect time to do it. I mean, if I'd had an extra 2 years, would have gone differently, I don't know. But at the same time, I wouldn't have been playing international cricket and retired, you know, 5 or 6 months ago if I had captained for 4 or 5 years. So things do happen for a reason. It was a tough period in my life, but things happen for a reason, and that was the reason that maybe that's why I deal with it. I wouldn't have been a World Test Championship winner, hit the winning runs, if I had continued on as captain if I'd captained for a long period of time. 18 months was my time. Move on and look at things, you know, positively. I think it was a great team to be a part of, and I haven't watched them a lot with the time difference, but I'm sure once they're at home and you know, I can tell the kids that I used to play with that guy and that guy, and hopefully they do well in the years to come.
There's a photo in this book, this one here, I don't know if you can see this photo here. This to me sums up Ross Taylor. You still smile just like that, and you still can't wear your baggy the right way. It's still crooked. You're still your Blackcaps cap in Test cricket, this photo here. This kid here loved the game of cricket. Do you think by the end of your career, with everything you've been through, did you still love the game of cricket as much as you did back then when that photo was taken? Yeah,
I think so, and I still love the game now. I still want to play cricket, which I think is quite cool. You know, most 38-year-olds will want to probably give up by now, but I'm looking forward to hopefully playing some more cricket this summer. I think a lot of people think I'm retired fully, but no, I mean that kid just wanted to play cricket for New Zealand, Central Districts in New Zealand, and I was able to do that. Was he ready for some of the other stuff that happened? 100% no. I wasn't raised like that. You take people at face value. If they say something to you, you trust them and go with that. I've learned to be a little bit more street smart. It certainly hardens you up mentally, and it was nice for me to come out the other end and play 450 games for my country.
I want to go back. You've talked a lot already about Martin Crowe and your relationship with him, but he actually writes the foreword of this book, which he wrote before he passed away. Seeing that in black and white and have that in the book, was that very, what was that like? Because he was such a huge part of your life for so long.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know the specific dates around it, but that was, I think I went to him in September. I just had my testicle operation. I can say that in the
book?
I wanted to put the photo in, but
no one needs to.
That was no one needs to see that. But yeah, I was talking with Leanne at the time, and I just thought, no, I've just got to ask him, Hogan, will you do my forward? You know, there was, he had 6 months left, so I thought, if I don't ask him now, I might never get the chance to. So, drove to his house. Lorraine was there, and it was a pretty cold day in Auckland, to be fair. So we went for a walk, and I was like, Hogan, can you write the foreword to my book? As we're walking around Middells Farm, and then he said, I was going to write one anyway, whether you wanted to, whether you were going to ask me or not. So he wrote. So this was probably September, October. We went over to Australia, played the first test, and having Mitchell Johnson and Stark coming in at you after you've just had an operation, and the groin region is not particularly.
Change your stance a bit.
Yeah, it was, and I think I got duck first innings and 26, and I didn't bat particularly well. And then that's when my eye was playing up. But he sent me the foreword to the book before the second test, and yeah, it was a little bit emotional. But I generally don't think I would have got 290 in Australia if Hogan hadn't sent me the foreword. But the thing about the foreword is it's an amazing read, but I read that a couple of times before different events. World Cup final, because I knew the book was going to come out, but it was a good, I guess, not motivation, but it was nice to know that, he was still there at different stages.
He's very much still there, and I think I remember when you broke his, oh dear, some dust in here, broke his test record, Martin Crowe obviously being the late, great Martin Crowe, New Zealand cricketer. He was fond of butterflies, and in fact he had a butterfly on his coffin, and he said that that's what he was coming back as. And I remember very vividly we were at the Basin and there was a butterfly there, and I reckon most of your innings, there was one at Eden Park, I remember as well, seeing them there. Did he know how big an impact he had on your career, do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess our relationship just grew organically. Like we had a love for wine and cricket. But I think once I got to a certain stage, it was just encouragement. But those first 3 or 4 years were very, very tough. A lot of tough love. It wasn't a lot of pats on the back then. But I think once he got to know me and he knew, to get the best out of me, was pretty cool. But it was funny. So when I went past him, because that was one of the goals, he said 17 test hundreds. He said, but when I got that 17th, I was on about 70, and this butterfly flew past, and that's when I thought, I'm going to get 100 here. But then I did an interview with Smithy after that game, and they were trying to find the butterfly, and they couldn't find it, which I found it was a bit eerie. That they were trying to find it, but I saw it.
I
a little bit,
saw it.
But the cameraman couldn't find it, which, yeah.
Having Ian Smith, knowing how close a relationship you have with our very own Ian Smith as well, and you went to school with his son, and he introduced you to Leanne, who you've spoken about a lot, and that's actually my mother, Leanne McGoldrick, who's your manager. You're in sync with some of the greats of our game, really. How does that feel looking back on it now, that those people were so important in the way your career shaped?
I think it sort of broke down barriers, because you want to be a black cap, but when you're interacting with these people and they're just normal people, I think you put a black cap, or I did, growing up in Marston, you put them on a pedestal, but when you're growing up, you're interacting with Martin Crowe, Ian Smith, Mark Greatbatch, and I fielded for Central Districts when I was 14, like in the first class game. So I was doing something that I loved, and but that just made it real that that's what I wanted to do. But no, Hogan, well, Smithy was, I've known Smithy for a long time. He features in the book, a lot. But yeah, during the captaincy, he was one of the first people that told me not to go to South Africa, and once again, those little things that the people that you respect and trust, to hear that from him, I'd already made my decision, but to hear it from him, I'd got home, as I said, I wasn't sleeping. I'd got back into New Zealand about 10:30 at night, got home at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I turned the rugby on. I turned the TV on rugby, and Smithy was commentating a Chiefs game, and I text Smithy and I said, "Oh, Smithy, can we catch up in the morning?" Thinking he's going to send me a message in the morning. Half an hour later, I get a message from Smithy, and he's in the bar with Justin Marshall at the casino in Hamilton, saying, "Yeah, come round." So, yeah, to go and talk to him straight after the event, and to get it, that time in there was something. That 6 o'clock a.m. meeting with him at his motel room. I think I wasn't in a great space, but to have had that initial contact straight away definitely helped me out in a lot of my thought processes at the time. So yeah, very lucky to have had some pretty cool people.
This book is about a lot of things. The captaincy is one large part. You talk a lot about being Samoan and your beautiful family and traditions and stuff around that. What was it like for you coming into a group that hasn't had a lot of different ethnicities play the sport in this country?
Yeah, I suppose as a kid growing up, I had my Samoan family, part Samoan, and then I had my European Pakeha Palangi family. Yeah, I had a loving upbringing, but you learn there's different cultures, and I think you learn to deal with the different cultures throughout your upbringing. But yeah, there was definitely not a lot of even Māori kids growing up in Masterton playing the game of cricket. So I just saw myself as a Kiwi, but as you got on and people started asking you different questions, and I guess just my name, Ross Taylor, knowing my name was Luteru was something, when you start flying internationally, you get to your room and it's Luteru Taylor, and your teammates are going, "Who's this guy?" To say it didn't, if I wasn't looked upon a little bit differently at different times, but I think that New Zealand's moved on a lot from when I first started playing in the age group levels to where we are now. It's, New Zealand has always been multicultural, but I think it was a test match in Pakistan. We had 6 guys born out of New Zealand that were playing and won that test match in Pakistan.
Were you ever on the receiving end of anything racist throughout your career? Did you ever have to deal with casual racism? How would you say your treatment has been throughout your career?
Oh, 100% have been a part of it, but I didn't want the book to just be, I guess a few people have mentioned it with the name of the title, was there a lot of racism in there? I think we've moved on a lot that I can even talk about it, I think. I touch on it. We took a lot out in the editing process. Because I didn't want it to detract from, a lot of the other good stories that are out there. But at the same time, there's also, a few of the stories involved a few of the players, who were still in the team. So I didn't want to compromise them or put them in a compromising position, because they've still got to have their career, and they're still very young as well. But yeah, I think you are subject to it at different stages. The change room banter is, as I sort of talk about it, is almost the barometer. But no, I decided, but like the captaincy, the best way to deal with it was to not say anything. Is that the best way to deal with it? Probably not, but sometimes the person who is getting directed at, the best way to deal with it is to be quiet, because you actually there's a bigger song and dance if you do actually try and front up to what's happening. Is that the right way to deal with it? Maybe not, but that's the way I dealt with it at the time. And as I said, I think New Zealand's moved a long way that I can talk about the subject, where I think in the past it would be not necessarily frowned upon, but probably wouldn't be as well received 10, 15 years ago, or when I first started playing for the Blackcaps.
In your final game at Seddon Park, you had Luteru Taylor around the boundary instead of Ross Taylor. What was your decision making behind that? I know your mum Anne loved it.
Yeah, I think I think it was a nice gesture, but I thought it was a little bit overplayed at the time. I don't know why it took my last game for that to have been brought up. To be fair, I just wanted it to play my last game and enjoy it for what it was. A few other people wanted to add. I mean, it was nice for, as I said, my mum and my family, but I think the timing was a little bit indifferent, to say the least.
When you walked out for that final time at Seddon Park, not a dry eye in the house, myself being one of those, the crowd was upstanding. What did it feel like?
It felt like my first game. In my first game at Napier, all your family coming to watch, and I had to wait about 40 overs to bat then. And then in the last, I think Lou Vincent and Nathan Astor scored 100 in my first game. My last game for New Zealand in a one-day game, Guppy and Will Young decided to get 100 each, and I'm just waiting there nervous as anything for over 40 overs. But no, it was nice. I think it was a nice sign-off for me. New Zealand cricket were fantastic. ANZ, I think they put up the tent. So and all my family enjoyed it. But no, it was a proud moment to have a sign-off in my adopted home and where I live in Hamilton. But yeah, it was nice. It was nice because a lot of athletes don't get the chance to say goodbye. Not only for me, but to say thanks to my family and friends who have been a massive support throughout my whole career.
You had one request in that last game, and it was to have the national anthem sung again.
Yeah, it was. As I said, I love playing for my country, and I can remember there's a couple of things I brought the blazer back in when I was captain, and my wife and I used to always say, Victoria, we used to say, why we don't sing the national anthem? Every other sport did it. You watch the All Blacks, you watch the rugby league, you watch, something so basic. I think we didn't do very well. So I asked to get that, and that slowly got brought through. And it was just, you don't get to represent your country that often, and to have sung that one last time with the family. I couldn't sing the last few words. I was a little bit too emotional, but it was quite cool to have the kids experience something that, obviously not many other kids can say they've done with their dad. Yeah,
it was very cool to see Mackenzie, Jonty, Adelaide, and then you had Guppy on the other side. Was there any point during that anthem you thought, maybe this is the wrong, I shouldn't have said that enough's enough?
Oh, I
still have more in me?
I don't think New Zealand cricket would have put on another 10 to that. to after that. No, I was content, and as I said, the stars aligned. My last game at home, all my family and friends can come and watch. Get an Uber home and sleep in my own bed. It's that's what it's all about, I think.
And so in the book, you cover so all of your highlights as well as some of those lowlights we've touched on. For you, we talked about the final chapter is all about the World Test Championship and winning that. When you look at your career as a whole and the different beacons that stick out throughout, what else? What is the big one for you? Would it be your 290? Would it be just the general resilience that you showed throughout the captaincy thing? What is it that makes you proud of what you did when you represented your country?
I think I was proud with, I love playing IPL. That was good fun to play against and with some of the best players in the world, and I think that broke down the aura of some of these nations that helped New Zealand cricket team and helped me. No, I think that the emergence of the side, I think the way the team keep getting better and are still a world-class side to this day, and hopefully for a few more years. There's probably a few retirements coming up in the next little while, which will test the depth of the side and the experience. But no, I think World Test Championship, 290 and 181, good individual milestones, I guess, and highlights. But I think those test wins and series wins away from home, I think, in this day and age, I think this New Zealand side's expected to win at home, where those wins away from home, I think, I think it would probably the highlight, the 90, the win at Hobart, still probably one of my favourite games and favourite wins as well.
How would your teammates describe Ross Taylor, the teammate? What would they say about you?
I think they'll be surprised when they read this. A lot of that stuff that's in there, they wouldn't have known that it happened to me. I just played the game. I think over time they would have got to know me a little bit better. I spend a lot of time in my room. If I'm hungry, I'll eat. If I'm tired, I'll go to sleep. But I think, what motivated me and how I dealt with different situations, I've never really discussed with them, my teammates. I think once they read that, a lot of them will probably make sense, I think, if they do decide to read it. But yeah, my teammates, I'm not sure. You'd have to ask them.
I will. Don't you worry about that. One of the great photos from the World Test Championship finals, you with your arm around Kane as you walk off after hitting the winning runs. There's a lovely moment in the book where you talk about a conversation that you and Kane had the night before the final. Do you worry about him and in that space and in that role now, when you can sit back and you know what it's like to be captain and how draining it can be, not just because of the game itself, but because of the outside noise as well? Yeah,
I think so. The pressure that he dealt with the world, I don't know how he did it. The 2019, he was batting, got player of the tournament, was batting unbelievably well, but to have dealt with how the team lost and those circumstances must have been. I knew how hard it hit me, so I could only imagine how hard it hit him. But no, he's a pretty resilient guy himself. I always say he's born to bat, Kane, but if there was anything that I did for him was try and take as much pressure off him in his role, and hopefully, Tim, I'm sure will be doing that, and hopefully there's some other individuals that are taking as much pressure off Kane to make his job. I mean, it's a tough job in itself to be a Test captain, but I hope New Zealand cricket and steady keep him on for as long as possible, because I don't know. I don't see Kane playing much longer once he's not captain. So hopefully he's got a few more years left in him to captain and get those records and set the bar high for the next guy to come along and beat those. You have a lot of people write comments about you in the book, and when I'm sure you've read the book a few times now. But too many. Yeah. Did you learn anything about yourself? There's a few stories in there that I didn't know about myself until Paul interviewed these people, which some of them were reassuring and made my job a little bit easier, but some were made things a little bit more frustrating. And then once, having to go back after hearing that made it tough. I probably achieved a lot more than I expected I'd ever would as a kid growing up in the bush, and that's how we sort of finish it. And, something that I've told Mackenzie she's not allowed to read it till she's 19. So. If I know your daughter like I think I do, she'll be reading this. She's already read it. She'll be going into a Whitcoulls or Paper Plus. Yeah, getting straight into it. So what's next for Ross Taylor? You're still going to play some domestic cricket. You're still going to play in some leagues around the world, maybe some county cricket. I've just got to start a new job, 2 days a week with an equities company in Auckland as a client relationship manager. I'm really looking forward to doing a job outside of cricket. Most people go with the cricket route. I think I'll always have an affiliation and association with cricket, but I'm really excited to do something outside of cricket, and equities is something that I've always, not always, but have had an interest in since probably 10 years ago. But I look forward to learning the job, and I'll take you out for coffee, Laura.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Talk about it, but
you're a businessman now. Shouldn't we go to the golf course or something?
Yeah, we'll see. That was where Guppy will want to meet. But no, I'm excited for that. But I'm looking forward to playing for CD in the coming months as well.
Because would you, you just mentioned there before, but would you like to still, if someone said to you, hey, look, we've got a part-time coaching gig, or CD needs some help with a bat, would you step in there? Like, would you ever consider going down the coaching road?
That was the best thing about Castle Point. They're very flexible and been very accommodating, and me still pursuing the cricket stuff in between. But no, I've had a couple of players come and ask for me to mentor them in different ways, and I look forward to passing on the knowledge that Hogan passed on to me, and I won't be as forthright to them as Hogan was to me, but I'll pass on. I'm sure this is what Hogan used to say to me in a nice way.
We'll all miss your slog sweep to Foo Corner. Will we see some of that for CD?
I hope so.
Will you be teaching any of that?
Nah, if they want me to teach them, I'll teach them, but no, there definitely won't be.
Who gave you that nickname, by the way?
I would say it was around the Jamie Howe, Daryl Tuffy, used to always, the CD boys, and then Bondi and Daryl Tuffy used to.
But Shane Bond still calls you that, doesn't he?
It's funny when you see people, that's how they refer to you at different stages as Foo. So it's quite nice.
Where did it come from?
It's a boy in the bush. Foo was a word that we used to use growing up as cool. So for whatever reason, I brought it back. But that resonated with Daryl and Shane Bond and Foo, and then Foo Boy is where it came from. When the slog sweep or the hit to cow corner would come in, and it's stuck ever since.
Off it goes.
But as Ian said when he first heard it, he thought I was saying that people were calling me food.
You do eat a lot. So Ross Taylor, we know a lot about Ross Taylor, the cricketer, and we're going to learn a lot more about him and his journey. But are you excited to be Ross Taylor, the dad, now? Because as much as you've always been a dad since you've had your kids, you haven't been there a lot, just through nature of your game and what that means. Are you looking forward to spending some time at home and doing the family things and going to all the weddings and the parties and the dance recitals?
Yeah, funerals, they were always tough to miss. But yeah, no, my daughter Mackenzie, I reckon I've watched 3 netball games her whole life, and I went to 3 in a row. It was really cool to see them grow up, to drop them off at school, things that obviously most people probably do on a daily basis, and for me it was really cool because we went on a family holiday. You don't really do any of that stuff because don't get me wrong, they come to a lot of countries and get to experience some cool things, but you're with them, but you're not quite present. You've got a game in a day's time, so you can't really switch off too much. So to do that stuff and be present and not have to play a game in a couple of days' time is something that I enjoy. I'll miss cricket, no doubt about it, but at the same time, I've had my time, and I look forward to watching. And the kids were a bit disappointed watching the England series. They're like, Dad, you should have held on a little bit longer and go to England and
have a Lord's lunch.
Have a Lord's lunch and go to the Queen's Jubilee. Yeah, I had a bit of grief. I had a bit of grief there for a while, but they watched it on TV.
Yeah, it's totally the same thing. So the book also gives you another opportunity to thank the people in your career. Was that nice to be able to do as well? Because sometimes, I guess, when you're in the moment, you don't always thank the people you want. You could sit back and really write, something to, I think of your wife Victoria, who's done so much. And is that another great reason to be able to write a book? Yeah,
I think it's something that doesn't come naturally to me either. I think, it was nice to, it's like your parents, you don't really probably thank them enough for what they've done and sacrificed over their life. So it was nice to thank Leanne and a lot more than just saying thanks for your contribution, because she's been a massive part of my career. My wife and friends, as I said, your teammates who you spend the most time with. But then now cricket's over, you get back to, I think that's sort of, to me, sort of when things started to resonate that it was time to move on. When even even your friends and family didn't want to come watch games of cricket. They were like, oh, he's had enough. So I think they were excited for me to be around a bit more and be able to go and, as I said, do normal things where I did get to see them a bit, but not quite the same when you're playing a couple of days later, where now I can go away and, you know, really be there and maybe have one or two more beers and or wine than I would have had if I was playing a few days later.
Well, for those who don't know, Ross and my mum have worked together for what, 16 years? 20?
About 18, 19.
It's a long time. And you still talk on the phone as much as you always have?
Well, it depends if you're ringing her.
Yeah, Mum hangs up on me to go and talk to Ross. What's that all about? So I know everyone who knows you is very excited for this next chapter in your life. And as a cricket fan and as a friend, I want to thank you for all the joy you brought to us on the cricket field. It hasn't always been easy. And for cricket fans, you wouldn't know. But you could see always how much it meant to represent your country. And if you do want to find out more about Ross and his life story, his family, where he came from, what it was like out on the road, Ross Taylor, Black and White. Ross, thank you for your time today. I appreciate it, and I look forward to giving this a proper read.
Thanks for having me.